This is a reflection on some of the constituencies that have not had members of parliament for some time. We begin in Banisa constituency in Mandera County, where the member of parliament, Kulo Hassan, who had been elected in the August 2022 election, died on the 20th of March 2023. That constituency has had no member of parliament for nearly 2 years. It will be 2 years in March this year, in the next 2 or so months. Beyond that, there is another constituency, Ugunja constituency in Siaya County, has not had a member of parliament since the 7th of August, when Opio Andai was appointed into the cabinet to be the CS for energy. There's another constituency, which is the constituency of Magarini in Kilifi County. The member of parliament, Harrison Kombe, had his election nullified by subsequent courts up until the Supreme Court in May 2024. So for more than 8 months, that constituency has not had a member of parliament. And there are those several wards. The CEO says there are 13 in number. We'll be looking at them later on the screen. But question, Moses, because you're saying that you're not able to conduct these by-elections, but what are your reflections, especially if you have to look at a constituency like Banisa? The member of parliament died just a month, or so, 2 months actually, after the previous commissioners left office. No representation over time. But then what also would it take to conduct a by-election as soon as the commissioners are in?
Thank you, Sam, once again for the opportunity to look at some of the issues that you brought to us. And just like I mentioned earlier, in as far as preparation for some of these processes that the Commission had planned to do, we have done our preparation. I want to particularly talk about the by-elections, which is in my docket. We had already made a proposal to the CEO on the plans that we have, just like we normally do when we have such by-elections. And we were ready. We were ready to do the by-election. However, just like I had mentioned earlier, and the CEO had alluded to, there comes a time when you realize then that you can't proceed beyond the preparation, the preparatory levels, which is what we can do as a secretariat. So therefore, once again, the bottom line here is that yes, we are prepared. We have everybody in post. We have what it takes. We have done our budget, and done our projections on what we need for the by-election. But then we stop because we cannot proceed without the commissioners again.
Right. So I hear that you have the people, you have the budgets ready, but there are processes that have to be taken, including calling people who want to run for election, the processing of candidates. Yes. I don't know if you'll have anything to do with voter register verification. Yes. What does that look like? So assuming you have commissioners, by the way, how soon can you have commissioners now that the selection panel has been sworn in?
Some possibly by end of May or early June. Because the selection panel took oath of office on Monday, the 27th. Right. And in terms of the IEBC Amendment Act of 2024, the panel has 90 days to deliver. Once the 90 days lapse, they down tools, and only the framework for constituting a panel continues to exist. But the persons in the panel quit by law. Even if they are not done by the time? They are expected, they have to expedite. Because they cannot get an extension? They can't get an extension unless the act is amended. So by the 27th of April 2025, sorry, it is expected that they will have submitted 2 names to the president for the position of chair, and the president will appoint 1, and then 9 names to the president, and the president will appoint 6 as members of the commission. Then the president has 7 days within which to submit these names to Parliament for purposes of vetting.
For vetting. And vetting has a timeline also?
Around 14 days, but that is subject to parliamentary calendar.
Okay, all right. So really, it is in the month of May, nothing earlier than that you can have commissioners, and you're saying it could stretch to June. So let's assume that June 1st, you have members of the commission sworn in, including the chairman.
Yes.
What would it take to have a by-election?
I think actually what will happen is that as soon as we have the commissioners in place,
yep,
we will table our paper. Usually we develop we have a concept paper that we have done regarding what we require, the resource that we require, and all that is required to do this by-election. We will table it before them. They will approve with amendment or approve it the way it is, and then immediately after that we roll out. Then they will gazette the returning officer for that particular electoral area. They will gazette the dates, the dates of the campaign dates. They will, do all that is required of them, which includes now engaging the stakeholders about the whole process. And our team then will hit the ground running, and we should be ready. If the 90 days that is required or immediately, yep, we will definitely be ready as soon as we have the commissioners to guide the process for us. So therefore, what Sam we're saying is that...
So you have not been able to calculate the timelines in terms of the minimum number of days you require to the election date or the maximum number? But
maybe I will let Sam advocate to... allude.
Thank you, Sam. Yes. Ordinarily, under ordinary times, yep, the law provides 90 days for conduct of the election.
Upon the occurrence of the vacancy.
Member of Parliament, yes. Yeah. Member of National Assembly. Yeah. And for members of the county assemblies, there is no particular timeline that is prescribed by law. So there are certain processes that require the preparation of an election timeline, because political parties have to undertake their nominations. They have to submit those names to the commission for gazettement. Then the commission has to schedule them for registration, that is the candidates, whether political party candidates or independent candidates. And once they are registered, then the process of enforcing the Electoral Code of Conduct kicks in. And for that purpose, it is the commissioners who enforce the code.
Okay.
The period of enforcement of the code is from the date of registration of the candidates up to...
So registration is what usually is known as nominations? In
the ordinary parlance, it's known as nominations, but in our legal reform proposals, we have sought to sanitize our statute books, because the word nomination in the Elections Act has been used interchangeably to mean the process by which political parties select or elect their candidates for nomination, for registration. And it also means the process by which the commission registers candidates. Yet in the Constitution, the words used is registration of the candidates as a mandate of the commission. So it is not nomination by the commission.
Right. No, just referring that for the sake of understanding by the viewers.
Yes.
So as that happens, so you're using this number of 90 days to say that's the maximum you can, knowing that the Constitution is about from the vacancy occurring, which is fine. But I'm also wondering, CEO, as this talks about the budgets, do you know how much it would cost per election, and then the total?
Thank you very much, Sam. Usually, we've come up with a rough estimate based on the number of voters, also on the number of polling stations. So, based on previous estimates, for example, for an MCA position or for an MNA position, when you look at the number of polling stations, we are able to determine roughly what resource requirement is needed. And then, because we've got a planning team that works with the returning officer, once we were able to quantify the figures, then we request the same from the National Treasury. For MNA, I think it has been running from around 120 to to 150 million, depending on the size of the registered voters. And for MCA, it has been going below probably maybe 30 to 40 million. So that has been a rough estimate.
30 to 40.
Yeah, yeah.
So if then you're talking about 13 wards, that would be about 520,000 shillings. If you're talking about 3 constituencies and use the upper limit of 150, that's about 450. So this is nearly 1 billion shillings. Do you have that budget?
No, usually the budget for by-election is not planned, it's not budgeted for. Once there is a by-election, it is an ad hoc assignment. We have to seek for resources from the National Treasury. It will be Article 2 to 3. They'll have to give us additional budget to handle that specific assignment. Which
only the commissioners can do?
Yes, after it has been approved, then the Secretariat basically write a letter to the CS National Treasury, who will basically consider and allocate us funds accordingly.
Okay, all right. Crispin, let's talk about the boundaries delimitation, and we know that you're already late. Many questions are being asked. With the judgment in Garissa that you cannot use the census data of 2019 in respect to the 3 counties, Mandera, Garissa, and Wajir, first on that account, how does it affect the working of IEBC?
Well, we are not just late with delimitation. Actually, there is a profound breach of the Constitution, because the Constitution provides that boundaries of constituencies and wards should be delimited between 8 and 12 years post the previous delimitation. So the cutoff date was the 5th of March 2024. That is the time that the outer years of 12 years lapsed. So it is a constitutional crisis of sort, because there is a breach of the provisions of Article 89 of the Constitution. So in order to address that, the Commission became proactive and sought the advisory opinion of the Supreme Court as a state organ recognized by the Constitution, and with the object of promoting constitutionalism on that matter. And the Commission framed 3 questions, basically, for the Supreme Court to advise on. The first one is that, in view of the fact that there are no commissioners in post, is it legally tenable for the Secretariat to undertake delimitation of constituencies and wards? And the second one is that, identifying that there is already a lapse in the constitutional timelines, can boundaries delimitation be undertaken outside the constitutionally prescribed timelines? And the third question is, now that there is already a lapse in the constitutional timelines, by law, can these timelines be extended? And if the timelines can be extended, by who? Is it Parliament to enact legislation extending time for delimitation? Or is it the Supreme Court giving directions by expanding time for delimitation to occur? The matter is coming up on Monday next week, on the 3rd of February. I mentioned before the Deputy Registrar for purposes of giving directions. In the meantime, there was an application by a party, that is the Center for Legal Aid and Clinical Legal Education, Kabarak University based, that sought to be joined as amicus curiae.
Right.
But that application was dismissed by the Supreme Court. So as it were, we are waiting for directions on the 3rd of February. Failure to delimit boundaries when it is a constitutional prescription is a constitutional breach. And that therefore has a bearing on the electoral units that Kenyans anticipated to be delimited between 8 and 12 years.
Right.
Therefore, that poses a question on the legality of the electoral units as they exist, the constituencies and wards, without delimitation and going into the 2027 elections. I can assure you as a constitutional law scholar that there will be a barrage of litigation around that area. But you know that the failure to delimit constituencies and wards is not a failure on the part of the Commission. It is solely external factors, because the first schedule of the IEBC Act is very clear on the avoidance of a void in the office of the Commission chairperson and members. Specifically, it requires that 6 months to the end of the term of the chairperson and the members, the process of initiating a fresh recruitment ought to commence. Like in our situation, by June 2022, the process of seeking a recruitment of a chairperson and 2 members whose end of term was known, 17th of January 2023, ought to have commenced, so that by the time the Commission chairperson was exiting and the 2 members, upon the lapse of their term, we ought to have had a chairperson coming in and 2 commissioners to replace. And you know, even if we did not have the 4 commissioners, 3 who resigned and 1 who was removed through a tribunal, the courts have held that 3 commissioners is enough quorum, and they can transact.
Even though around that time, the time you're referring to, as soon as the Cherera 4 came in September of 2021, there are actually challenges to their appointment and how they were chosen to the office. I remember there was actually a decision against Irene Masit.
That's true, sir.
And there was also a challenge on how new members of the commission were picked in the selection panel. So was it going to be possible for even then, the president then, to appoint a selection panel?
It's the dictate of the law, Sam.
Yeah.
The judgment of the High Court on the qualification of Commissioner Masit to hold office was delivered before the elections. But the court preserved the execution of that judgment. 1, on the issue of gender equality. Because then there would only be 1 other commissioner who is female remaining in post. But the declaration was very clear that because she did not, she actually participated in a previous general election, then she was not qualified to serve,
to be a commissioner,
as a member of the commission.
So how far had you gone in preparation for the boundaries delimitation? And if the commissioners were to come in and agree with you on the preparatory work you had done, how much time would it require, assuming that the Supreme Court would give you a window to go ahead and complete the process?
Thank you very much, Sam. I wanted to just add on what the director said. You are asking about the decision by the court and the court orders that were issued regarding the cases of Mandera, Wajir, and Garissa. And in that judgment, they actually indicated that IEBC can use the previous census figures. Some, even as we are speaking, from the time when census was done in 2019, up to now, we are actually 5 years midway. So the question as to whether we can be able to use data that has actually stayed for over 5 years. Are we going to extrapolate, or are we going to do that also pose other challenges? So, so assuming even the commissioners come, still, even after answering the question of whether the timelines can be expanded or not, those will be sticky points that needs to be addressed. But in terms of what we have done, since 2019, you know, we actually started with developing the Boundaries Review Operation Plan. Then even after that, we actually reviewed the legislation regarding boundaries delimitation. Previously, the legislation or the processes as defined in law were actually not in the IEBC Act. So, but at least for now, we can say it is something that is already in the IEBC Act, because when the NADCO report was presented, at least one of the things that was done was to look at the panelists as well as also the boundaries. So that has been fixed. We already have it.
Right.
But over and above that, we also did recruitment, not recruitment, we actually did sourcing of working tools for boundary delimitation, including plotters, and tools that are actually used for the purpose of delimitation. We also trained and capacity build staff for the purpose of boundary delimitation. Over and above that, we also we went to the field in all the 290 constituencies, and we were able to pick geodata information on new sublocations. There are over 2,300 sublocations that we picked that were not in the previous political boundaries.
Right.
Of course, we came back and we also now align them with the political boundaries that are there. We also did already the computation of the population quota, so we know which ones are likely to go, which ones are likely to remain. But also, the most important thing that was is remaining is the actual delimitation.
Okay.
We are supposed to go back to the field again to confirm with the county commissioners and their team whether our understanding of the information they gave us previously, the way we populated it, is actually right. This requires time. The boundaries delimitation process is largely people-driven, and therefore, even beyond that, the commissioners are supposed to oversee going to the field for the purpose of public participation. This would require them to go to 290 constituencies. If we even translate into in terms of number of days, already if they are to go even once per constituencies, we are already going beyond 1 year. And you said it rightly previously when you started this show that the final date should be actually August 2026. The question then begs as to whether, even when the commissioners join in June, those timelines remaining, will it be sufficient to complete the process? And my estimate is that the answer is no. It will be very, very difficult for the commissioners to be able to actually work with these timelines. So maybe the other issue is even if the timelines are expanded as per the discussions of NADCO,
right,
probably that will give room, but that is something to be determined by the Supreme Court. Yeah.
You know, that's quite interesting and also disturbing at the same time, because if the time remaining is not sufficient to do the boundaries delimitation, and already we have breached the Constitution, so it means then there's a high chance that we'll go to an election of August 2027 with the old boundaries, which you're saying there will be contest to that. But then between 2009 and 2027 is how many years? Is it 18?
2009
it was 2010, actually.
The delimitations was complete.
No, I'm saying
yes.
We are currently on constituencies based on 2009 census.
Yes.
Yes.
So 2009 to 2027 is 18 years.
Yes.
And we do an election that goes until 2032. So Kenyans will be represented up until 2032 with data as old as 23 years. Does that bother you?
It's a very sad story, Sam, because one is that the demographics have actually changed. So representation is affected. In order to ensure equitable representation, that is why it has been planned that boundaries review must be done between 8 and 12 years. So this is something that is unfortunately beyond the control. You remember, when we even started it in 2019, in 2020, we lost 1 year because we had to pause it because of COVID. That is something that we never envisaged. And even when we actually arrived in 2021, we are already in the process of preparing for the election. So it had to be paused. So there are some situations that were not actually planned for, but they came in. And now also with the exit of commissioners, without new commissioners, the situation has been worsened.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a sad story, but that is the way things are.
Right, and so even as we go towards this direction, Moses, maybe you can help us understand here. What do they take? This public participation that he's talking about, and you know how Kenyans have been very interested in understanding how they're being governed and raising several questions. What would it take for Kenyans to register their dissatisfaction, and it's partly with the processes you carry out, but also the question of recalling Member of Parliament, because they have been expressing themselves, especially in the period June, July, August of last year. What would that take at this time?
Well, like the CEO said, we find ourselves in a very dicey situation where there are processes that need to be prosecuted. However, we have external forces that are beyond us, that we have nothing we can do about. So we only pray that this process can be unlocked as soon as we have new commissioners who will then again provide policy direction in some of these questions that you are posing. Because you see, just like the CEO and advocate we has said, the ruling in Garissa again largely affects even the targets that we have put in place for our voter registration, because we again to a large extent depend on, for example, KNBS data to provide to guide our targets as to who we are targeting for voter registration, and therefore when we have such a pronouncement from the Court of Law, it takes us back to the drawing board as to what we are going to do. So therefore, such processes that you are alluding to, that Kenyans really yearn to go into, are affected, and we leave it to the Court of Laws to make judgment and guide us.
Back to you, CEO. So on that particular point about the census decision on the 3 counties in Northeastern, so they're saying that the government agencies should fall back on the data of 2009. So even if all things were working for you, would it be possible to review boundaries with data of 2019 for the rest of the country and 2009 for Garissa, Mandera, and Wajir? Or does that decision make you use 2009 data altogether?
Sam, if you ask me, using 2009 data, it will not be reflecting the true position. However, even when you compare that data with the census data, there's huge disparity, showing that actually the 2009 data was actually more compared even to 2019. And therefore, it even begs question as to whether you should use those data or not. My take would be, for example, is maybe for that area, because they have been told to do it after 1 year, it's probably maybe to suspend for that specific area and also do other areas. After you get the right information, then you can be able to use it, because that information is stale for now. There has been a lot of shift of population from that time up to now.
But can you really allocate boundaries for 290 constituencies without incorporating the constituencies in the north?
Because the boundaries delimitation is usually done within the county. So if we see, for example, 3 counties have been affected, Mandera, Garissa, and Wajir, then what is affected is actually playing within that county. You cannot move outside.
That's what I'm saying, because you have 290 constituencies spread across 47 counties. Mandera and Wajir and Garissa, I don't recall how many constituencies they have, but the number you allocate to them is also dependent on the total population on this other side, the other 44 counties, isn't it?
No. No. For the population of other counties, we are only using the same for the purpose of determining population quota. But once we determine population quota globally, then we use that to assess whether the constituencies are actually meeting threshold or not. So for that reason, it's easy to say, even, for example, revising the population quota, maybe just use the other constituencies, come up with a quota that will actually be used for the purpose of that.
Then what remains will be allocated to the 3 counties.
Correct.
All right. So let's make progress and focus on the questions about just before the 2022 election. You recall that I think it was slightly under a year to the election. There were regulations that were taken to Parliament, some of them on campaign financing, and they were defeated. I remember Speaker Justin Muturi blaming IEBC for the same. So have those been attended to, and as soon as commissioners come, then what must they keep themselves busy with, knowing too well that the political parties and members of the political parties who sit in parliament are interested parties in the next election?
Thank you, Sam. Let me answer that. Sam, I think it's important to give a brief history of election campaign financing so that we can better understand the bad situation in which we are in as a country. One, Kenyans in the year 2010 voted in favor of a new constitution. And in that new constitution, Kenyans stated that they desired that the amount of money that is spent by candidates and by political parties in elections needs to be regulated. And they assigned that responsibility to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to regulate. Now, the IEBC developed a bill, the Election Campaign Financing Bill, way before the year 2013. But unfortunately, this bill was not enacted into law until the general elections of March 2013 were conducted, and it only became law in December 2013.
Right.
Again, the issue that you spoke about, interested parties. So that therefore means that there was no regulation on campaign finances in the general election of 2013. In the year 2015, the Commission developed regulations to give effect to the provisions of the Parent Act. And when the Commission required candidates and political parties to submit their records, counts, committees, expenditure committees, fundraising committees, part of the political formation then, CORD, went to court and challenged this implementation, and the court granted conservatory orders. That therefore meant that in the year 2017, there was no enforcement of election campaign financing. And in fact, Parliament then suspended the operation of the Election Campaign Financing Act so that it did not apply to 2017.
Right.
In 2018, the Commission reviewed the regulations, and ahead of 2022 general elections, gazetted the spending and expenditure limits. It is at that point in time that the Parliamentary Committee on Delegated Legislation summoned IEBC and quashed those regulations that had been gazetted. Again, the result was that the election campaign financing framework was not enforced in the 2022 general election.
Right.
Friendly entities or entities friendly to democracy and the rule of law went to court, Transparency International and Katiba Institute, to challenge that action of Parliament. And 3 months to the general election of 2022, there was a judgment of the court that quashed the decision of Parliament. And the court then said that because this is a mandate of the Commission, and because the Commission has developed regulations, all it needs to do is to subject these regulations to public participation. Engage all stakeholders, get their views, satisfy the stakeholder consultation threshold, and then publish the regulations, and then let the regulations apply. But the problem is for the Parent Act, because the Commission has interrogated the Parent Act and realized that certain provisions of that Act require review. And therefore, the Commission has developed the Election Campaign Financing Bill to amend. By law, this bill has to be processed through Parliament. Will this bill see the light of the day?
What's your guess?
Because the enforcement of the regulations is dependent on the Parent Act and the amendments that are proposed in the Election Campaign Financing Amendment Bill.
Yeah. And the law cannot be implemented without the regulations? No clauses of the Act that are enforceable?
It is very hard to enforce. You see, the provisions of the Principal Act require implementation procedures, and these procedures can only be better covered in the regulations.
Right.
So the regulations essentially, using poetic language, is the regulations are the palm oil with which the Principal Act is consumed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, again, you're in that question of the timelines, and I don't know what you're going to do, CEO, because you have packed so many things waiting for commissioners, because, again, you cannot do nothing with the proposed amendments that you have. Will the commissioners have enough time to deal with all those things, knowing too well the political hit is just about to start going up?
Well, it's a tricky situation. But you remember, even in 2022, we were faced with similar situations. Even the same law you are talking about, we went to election without it.
Yeah.
Even some other amendments that we proposed, we went to election without those amendments. What we did was basically just to gazette some operational procedures that we are going to adopt for the purpose of conduct of the election. And you remember when we had the court case on BBI?
Yes.
The court actually found that we were proactive enough to even come up with the procedures. Nevertheless, there was no actually law to govern the conduct of that specific referendum. So if it comes to that time that we can't be able to move because of those stalemate, that is some of the avenue that we have, that we gazette some of those operational procedures that we are going to use. Let somebody challenge that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll be getting to the questions that you're sharing with us at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag to use is Citizen Tonight. You can also write to us through Facebook. And as we do that, so Moses, we are going to the, which number of election? 2013, 17, 22, 2027. So that will be the fourth election under the new constitution. 6 elections in a day. Very emotive process. Challenges that are witnessed. IEBC has repeatedly said it's such a huge task for 6 elections in a day. Reflecting on what you saw in 2022, and I think you were very busy at the Bomas of Kenya with a few unfortunate incidents. What lessons are you taking to 2027 to make the election more efficient than it was?
Thank you, Sam, once again for that, for taking us back to and reminding us where we have come from. And yes, 2022, as we always say, every election is a learning process for us. And by the way, you didn't include the referendum. We also did the referendum. And the people on post, most of them have gone all through that. So 2022 came with its own unique issues, and we have learned a lot, especially because you see, once we do an election, we normally go through what we call a post-election evaluation period, where we bring on board all stakeholders and to evaluate us and tell us how our processes were, our hits and misses. And therefore, we have a very comprehensive post-election evaluation report, which highlighted some of the, we don't call them the problems, but the challenges that we went through and what we've got to do about them. And these challenges, of course, cut across all our operational areas. But just to maybe highlight from my section, because I'll also give the CEO to probably look at the other sections. We have learned quite a lot. We have been guided, for example, in terms of voter registration, the timing of our release of our register to the public, the need to do our audit, the need to work with other stakeholders early enough to iron out some of the sticking issues about the register, which we managed to do, but we did them quite late. We've also learned the need to engage our stakeholders. Public participation, we have realized, is very important. Communication we also learned that communication can do a lot to to demystify our processes, and that is why we had a very robust communication strategy to the public. You saw what we did in Bomas of Kenya, where we opened up. And we worked with the media and stakeholders who are key in passing some of these messages to us. We therefore, of course, learned a lot also, and are working to improve in our processes in terms of even our technology. We are now improving it. So
are there specific recommendations you'll be making to the commissioners as soon as they come?
Yes.
Because I think one of the difficult issues that Kenyans had to deal with was following the trickling in of results. Because at some point there was a bit of numbers showing at the Bomas of Kenya, then that was abandoned. What are you taking into the future?
Yeah, I like I said, I think we have put proposals, which I would like the CEO to probably
go ahead, CEO.
They are good proposals that we have handed over to the CEO on how we are going to manage that.
Thank you very much, Sam. Yes, you are right that at some point the results at the dashboard, the screen we were displaying had some challenges, but that was because of the verification process that was going on. And it was only the chairman who was actually validating and pushing them to the screen. So because of the time taken to validate the process, and it was being done manually, they could not be able to synchronize at a go. So we recognize that problem, and we know where the challenge is. Over and above that also, I think it's, if you remember, some of the commissioners were also complaining that they were not seeing the results. It was only the chairman who was actually having the results. So those are things that we have taken note as lessons learned. And they are very simple things.
Was that accurate?
No, because it was only the chairman who could be able to reflect.
You just said that some commissioners are complaining that they could not access the results.
No, they could access it. Of course, that the fact that the chairperson was the only person who had the MacBook, and that is where actually he refreshed the same. Probably also maybe they needed also to be able to also have the same and see view only. But at that particular time, because the chairperson is the only returning officer for presidential election, that was his responsibility. That was the way actually we saw it.
So in your assessment, soon you'll have new commissioners joining you, coming to guide you on policy. What do you think should be the role of commissioners in management of a presidential election?
The commissioner's role is very clear. Just like in constituency and county returning officers work, they are also supported by other staff. But it's a teamwork, but ultimately the person who actually declares the same is the returning officer who is gazetted. So I see that commissioners have to work very closely with the chairperson. You remember there was issue of corporate governance that was being recommended by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I want to say that we have got elaborate process that is even defined in our commission charter in terms of how the commission and secretariat are supposed to work. So personally, I didn't see any challenge per se. I just saw maybe, if I can, for the lack of a better word, probably maybe it's individual choice, because the processes are very, very clear. They were supposed to be working together. You could even see they were announcing the results together. So the issue of reflecting the same in the...
No, I'm asking that because you see, you're saying that the chairman is the returning officer, but in appointing the chairman to be the returning officer, he's actually the one who signs that same Gazette notice, isn't it? Appointing himself, isn't it?
That is something that is already discussed, but okay. In appointment, it's already in law that it is the chairperson who is supposed to be the returning officer. What is actually being done is a formality. But in terms of gazettement, once he has signed, the person who actually transmits the same to GP, government printer, is actually the accounting officer or the CEO. So it is just to align the process actually with the law. So, but in terms of working, all the commissioners are working.
Sorry, which law appoints a chairman returning officer?
Well, I'll ask the
director. It is actually the Constitution. The Constitution, Article 138, sub-Article 10. It empowers, or it gives power to the chairperson of the commission to declare the results. So by that declaration, he is the returning officer, because he's returning the elections.
So if the chairman is to declare,
yes,
what role do the commissioners play?
The commissioners, under the same constitution, as well as the secretariat, ought to participate in the tallying and verification. If you read the provisions of Article 138.3 together with 138.10,
yep,
then you get the synergy or the working relationship that ought to be in place. So that the secretariat, because the actual verification is technical work.
Yes.
So you find the secretariat verifying the results on the floor of the tallying center in the presence of the agents of candidates, and then the commissioners have access to confirm that the right process is taking place because they exercise oversight. Then they own the results, and you saw commissioners announcing results. That therefore confirmed that the results would move to the commissioners from the technical team, the commissioners and the chairperson. And then the chairperson ultimately
declares.
After the announcements by the commissioners, ultimately when Form 34C is prepared, then the chairperson declares those results.
I'm looking at 138.3C that you've referred us to, that after counting the votes in the polling stations, the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the result.
Perfect, Sam. And that is a matter that was litigated before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The petitioners argued that the provisions of Article 138.3 was superior to the provisions of Article 138.10. And therefore, they urged the court to find that verification, tallying, and declaration of results is a preserve of the entire commission. But the Supreme Court found that there was no conflict as such, because the Constitution cannot be in conflict with itself. The Constitution must be read as a whole.
So clearly you say that it is the chairman to declare.
Perfect.
As per the Constitution.
Yes.
But the tallying and verification is by the commission.
Perfect.
So when commissioners are complaining that they could not see the tally, only the chair would see, what is that?
Well, the CEO has explained the situation at Bomas.
I'm asking you.
Well, in my view, because I was present at Bomas, there was one verification of the presidential election results by the commission, and there was tallying.
Who's the commission here?
The commission, and maybe I can take you to... Maybe I can take you
I'm asking, at Bomas and what you are referring to.
Yes.
That the results were verified and tallied by, tallied and verified by the commission. Who did that?
The secretariat, the commissioners, and then the declaration by the chairman. And some, you see...
So the commissioner tallied and verified and forgot that they did, or what?
They may answer themselves.
They're no longer in office.
The Supreme Court addressed this matter and said that the commission, the definition of the commission is dependent on the situation that obtains. And that even at the polling station, when you talk about the commission at the polling station, you are talking about the presiding officer. When you talk about the commission at the constituency level, when results are being processed, and the constituency is headed by a returning officer, handling presidential election results, the Supreme Court said that returning officer at the constituency is the commission. You go to Bomas, the staff tallying on the floor, and the commissioners confirming, that is the commission.
All right, let's take a look at this questions that have come to us. Henry Casina on Facebook, you're saying, will they have the right environment to conduct free and fair elections as far as the current political atmosphere is concerned? Who wants to answer?
CEO.
CEO.
Maybe CEO can give that assurance.
Thank you, Sam. The Commission is guided by law in terms of execution of its duty. Political environment is likely to shift and change. but their work is cut out and defined in law. And also, there are also safeguards for such kind of issues that are likely to affect the conduct of free and fair election. Like, for example, the Director League has talked about Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee, which is largely actually done by the commissioners themselves. There's the issue of disputes if they are likely to arise. There's the Dispute Resolution Committee.
Right.
So there are actually means and ways of handling such if you're talking about political environment, for example, and the campaigns, people are going left, right, in other areas, we have got the Code of Conduct, and the Commission has been given power. You remember last time, we were actually rendered toothless because of those two cases of, unfortunately, Sabina Chege and Moses Kuria. But later on, what did the court declare? That actually we did our work in accordance with the law. So we have the tooth. Environment as it may be, we just expect that we'll actually adhere to the law and follow what is required to be done.
Okay, I think the viewer must be looking at the process of recruiting commissioners last time, the ultimate fallout within the commission, and what really became quite an unfortunate situation. John Kiki, how fast are they going to work to achieve the objective since they have limited time? You can take down these questions, then you can respond to them. So again, how fast are they going to work to... Can you just go back to the previous question? How fast are they going to work to achieve the objectives since they have limited time? Let's go to the next one. Still on Facebook, Karis Omari is saying, we seem to be changing commissioners regularly, but the secretariat remains and the mistakes repeated. Don't you think that's where the problem is? They're asking questions about yourselves now. Apollinaris Mahero, what about boundary review? Will it go on after restructuring IEBC? I think you've responded to that. Another one, Philip Munyoki. Voter registration is an administrative function. Why has it delayed? Because it doesn't need the authorization of commissioners. Moses had alluded to a bit of that, but maybe to add to that question, if commissioners had already gazetted continuous voter registration to continue, then they left office, would you have continued to register?
Sam, just like we said, I think we actually mean that they gazetted the date, and we supposed that there will be a transition, and we will have new commissioners.
No, what I'm asking is,
yes,
if continuous voter registration was on,
yes,
and then commissioners leave midway, can you continue to register in the absence?
We will continue. We will continue until such a time again there comes an activity that requires them. Probably like when we conclude our register and it requires to be certified. Then we'll have a problem again. But we will have continued. Definitely. Yeah, we'll have continued.
So, CEO, if you can respond to the earlier questions, the ones that you want to attend.
Yes, thank you, Sam. I think there was a question of how fast can IEBC work with a limited time. I want to assure our voters that, as we said before, time is not lost so much. Well, I said even in terms of registration, if you remember in 2021, towards the end of 2021 is when we were doing mass voter registration. And we actually managed to get 3.6 million over and above the 2017 figure of 19.6 that we actually added, and even after removing the dead voters. So if you look at the continuous voter registration for that period, we were only talking about 50,000.
Right.
But enhanced continuous voter registration is what actually managed us to garner 3.6 million above. So time is not lost. We still can be able to manage that. The only thing we are saying is that I think for now, those who have reached the majority age should just go and take their IDs so that when we are ready, we actually will go provide the facility and they should be able to come and we register them, enroll them. Plus also now we are also trying to hasten the process to make it more user-friendly. At least those are the proposals we are putting in place. A situation whereby you can just probably pull the information regarding somebody's ID from the integrated population registration system. So that will actually eliminate keystroke errors. We only need now to capture your biometrics. It will make the process seamless and user-friendly. Or you can even allow the would-be voter to capture their biographic details and then they are given an appointment, they appear, and their biometrics are taken. These are processes that we aim to put in place to enhance and make the registration process user-friendly. The rest is just going to be issues like transfers, change of particulars, and certification and inspection and verification of the register, which those are required towards the end of the pre-election period, not during pre-election period. So I believe the only thing that has been actually putting us behind is the fact that even some of the things that we have developed that requires now approval cannot be approved as we wait for the commissioners. But once they come, we can be able to fast track them.
And can there be a continuous cleanup of the register?
Yes, precisely. I think Sunkuli, I don't know whether he mentioned it, but already we are in talk with interagencies, with those institutions that are responsible for cleaning of the register of voter. In particular, the civil registry. We even have more. DPP, for example, if somebody is prosecuted for an election offense, those who are considered insane from the Director of Medical Services. These are some of the things that we have put in place. Even as the commissioners come, we can still be able to kickstart. Okay. We have even already started, so that now, by the time they come, we are ready. And the cleanup can be continuous. We don't need to wait until when the auditors come. Okay.
I'll get to you. Let me just take some more questions, then you can respond to them together. Kalu Leparia on X, you're saying that marginalized communities like the Ilchamos of Baringo, who are hoping the boundary review would grant them fair representation, continue to face delays. With 2027 nearing, how will IEBC complete this process to protect minority rights? You may have responded to it partly, but also you can address that particular question. The other one is still on X. Mark Makuda, you're saying that what has caused all this constitutional crisis with the IEBC, and what can be done to avoid such occurrence from happening in the future? Does this constitutional crisis jeopardize 2027 general election? You can respond to some of those.
Yes, thank you. I want to respond to the observation or the comment that the Secretariat remains permanent, and that it could probably be the problem. How I wish Sam, the Kenyan who has given this comment, knew how competent and professional the Secretariat is. The Secretariat is spread across the country and conducts 5 elections declared by the Secretariat, because the presidential election is declared by the commission chairperson. Of course, it's the Secretariat that again conducts that election, but the declaration is by the chairman. Arising from 2022 general election, there was never a nullification of any election for the position of governor, 47, for the position of county woman member to the National Assembly, no nullification. Senate, 47, no nullification. We have member of National Assembly, only 1 nullification.
Magarini.
By the Supreme Court, Magarini. And for MCA, just a pocket, less than 10 nullifications. And this then places the performance percentage at way above 95%. The Secretariat is worth celebrating. Thank you.
But CEO, how many members of staff have you lost since 2022?
Let me also commend my director for that comment, and I want to agree with him that we have competent and professional staff, and this actually is said because of the outcome of the election, and in terms of the number of petitions that were filed. In fact, they were reduced from 300 to 124, and even with those 124, still the percentage success rate is very, very high. So I think Kenyans, we can't have better Kenyans to handle the election than the ones who are currently there. So looking at, and I want to go back to your question, Sam. Because you are saying that how many staff have we lost? So far, I can say our our staff requirement is, or establishment is about 1,450.
Yes.
But right away we are about 850. So there's a difference of about 600. Mm-hmm. But even beyond that, another sad story is that even as we approach the 2027, we will also be having other exits because of retirement age. Mm-hmm. So
you know the number?
Roughly, probably around 40, 50.
40 to 50. And,
yes, yes.
And these are
there are those that are retiring. Yes, senior. Those are just senior. I'm talking about senior.
Yes.
I'm talking about directors. I'm talking about county election managers. So those are, or maybe even the returning officers, the senior election officers. Mm-hmm. So, but we are mindful of that, and we are also looking at the succession planning of it. As I speak to you, even as the commissioners join, so sometimes in June, we'll have 6 positions of directors to be filled. I will only have 3 substantive directors remaining. 6 will need to be filled. And beyond that, also, we have got other positions that have been falling vacant for the county election managers and also senior election officers. So those are things that but fortunately enough, we train our staff. For example, if we lose county election managers, we still can be able to promote the senior election officers, or maybe even interview those senior election officers within that county and be able to pick one who is competent enough to carry the day. And then we can now be able to fill those lowest position, junior position, from external. So that issue of upward movement is also something that we have planned. So
6 out of 9 directors, there are vacancies there? 6 directors have left?
At the moment, 5. No, so we have got 5 acting, but one is also leaving in end of April. So it means that the commissioners actually will come when we have got only 3 substantive.
And in your recruitment, you promote the existing ones, or you can also appoint from outside?
Our policy is to start internally, particularly for the county election managers and also managers. But for directors, for deputy CEOs and CEO, that is supposed to be done competitively, outright. Yes, yes.
So you're saying that the staff establishment is 1,450 versus 850 that you have now. You've lost 600. So you have lost, or so you had 1,450 in 2022?
That is the establishment, but the actual in post is now 1,850. So it means we are not able even to fill that gap of 1,450. We went to the election when we were still lower than 1,450.
Okay.
If you remember, if you remember, we had advertised for recruitment of some polls officials.
Yeah.
By and large, county election managers, senior election officers, and assistant election officers. But that never saw the light of the day. Why? Because we were very close to the election. So what we did was actually to have even temporary staff to handle lower position, and we actually promoted some of the staff to take higher position.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me just get this right. So staff establishment is 1,450. So in 2022, how many people are working for IEBC?
We were close to 950 there.
950?
Yes.
Now you're at 850. So you've lost at least 100.
At least 100.
And you could be losing another 40 to 50.
Sure.
All these are positions that you cannot fill at the moment?
There are those, for us, the critical positions are the ones for the returning officers, who are the senior election officers, the deputy returning officers, and county election managers, who are the county returning officers. Those to us are very, very important post officials.
Because these are permanent staff?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Now, CEO, I want us to conclude, but shortly after the election, there was a conflict between you and your deputy, and she came back to the office. You're talking about Ruth Kulundu. She came back to the office on the strength of a court order. How is your working relationship now?
We have no problem in terms of working relationship. Like I said earlier before, that we are an institution that adheres to the rule of the law. If the court has articulated itself and say this is a position, we are human beings, so we just work together. Yeah.
How much work are you able to assign her?
Well, anything related to her directorate, there are 3 directors actually reporting to her. And therefore, I find no problem in terms of anything that comes for her portfolio is assigned to her, and it is delegated downwards to the directors.
Yeah. When does your 5 years tenure expire?
9th March 2027. For the contract period of 5 years.
So
it will end in 9th March 2027.
So there's a possibility there'll be a different CEO if you're not reappointed, isn't it?
Absolutely.
How does that work? Let me switch the question to Moses. How does that work when you have changes so close to an election, especially with senior staff?
Well, the ideal situation would be that these things happen a little early, so that there is that succession management. But again, like we have said, the law is the law, and we follow what happens, and whoever comes in at that particular time has got to pull up their socks and jump into the deep end. So it's been our Achilles heel. I don't know how it was designed that these things happen just very close to the elections. And it has not happened once or not twice, but even with the commissioners, they've been coming in late. But the beauty is, again, the team that you find, just like my colleagues have said, the team that you find will always bring you on board, and they will bring you, up to speed. Yeah. And if you, as a good worker, you will always find somebody to hold your hand, and you will work well. So we don't have control over that. Thank you.
Okay. Now it's just about 4 minutes to 11:30. Do you have any closing remarks?
Well, Sam, yes. Some few closing remarks. We have the process of recruitment of commissioners afoot. The process is guided by the law. Our prayer is that the selection panel will do a thorough job, and that they will come up with commissioners who are well-grounded, highly professional, of high integrity, and who are able to be good team players with the Secretariat. That is our prayer. Thank you. Interesting. Moses, in closing?
I think mine is to join my colleague in saying that we still urge Kenyans to prepare for the processes that are ahead of us. Once the commissioners are on board, we are going to hit the road running. It's going to be fast and furious. There will be a lot of activities happening. We then just ask that, like what the CEO said, like our young people, we ask them to prepare to get their IDs in place. Let them visit the relevant offices. Let them get the IDs, because we are going to come for them. Because we are going to use every avenue, every strategy to come for them, make sure that they register. And anybody who didn't register prior to, from 2027, processes will be coming, people will be, things will be happening. So we just urge them to be on alert and join us in making.
What are your projections? How many registered voters are you expecting in 2027?
Between, because of the shifts of, like what is happening in Garissa, but we are looking at maybe 5 to 6 million new voters. 5
to 6 million. In 2022, there were 22 million.
22 million, 100. So we are looking at 28 at the end of the day, 27 to 28 million new vote, a register of 27 to 28 million
27 to 28.
Going into the 20.
That includes the deaths that may have occurred?
Yeah, after cleaning, of course. After cleaning, yeah, we expect that we will reach around 28 million new registers.
And by the way, did you really remove dead voters from the register of 2022?
Again, I want to educate you some. We don't remove people from the register. We just deactivate them. So we deactivate, just make sure that they don't appear, because you don't delete, How
many did you deactivate?
We did quite a substantial work, because this was assisted by KPMG. And therefore, we went into the 2022 general election with a very, very clean register.
So how many did you deactivate?
I cannot maybe place my hand on the numbers, but I think the CEO will speak to that. But I can assure you that, you see, with death again, you can never be sure that you're finished. Everybody is dying, because even today, somebody dies.
That's what I'm saying. Based on trends and patterns, how many do you expect to require to deactivate by 2027?
Usually, there is a percentage. I think KNBS gives about 8% of 8% of 1,000. There is a percentage that we work with, but I think the CEO will do that.
Sorry,
but with
8%
of I think of
8%. Or you mean 8 in 1,000?
8 in 1,000, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we use that that kind of figure. We are guided by KNBS figures. Okay. But I just wanted to assure everybody that we normally have a very rigorous process of cleaning the register, which we work with the Register of Deaths and Births and Deaths, okay, and of course other agencies that work around it. But we are saying that we really urge that we work together with our voters. Thank you very much.
Okay, if you had to use the rate of 18,000 against 22 million, it comes to about 176,000. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see.
It was about there.
We'll see what happens by the next election. Yeah. Your final word, CEO.
Thank you very much, Sam. I think, if I'm not wrong, in 2022, we had a very huge figure of dead voters. I think it was coming to around 400,000, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. That is a figure that was actually removed from the dead voters, and they were deactivated, as what the director said. The only problem is that we did that last minute. And remember, I told you that we need to do it continuously as we keep on exchanging information with the civil register of birth and death. We should be able to be doing that if they have digitized our system, because the challenge is that they were keeping records manually. Mm-hmm. If they have, then it will actually really assist us in terms of cleaning the register of voter. But in terms of closing remarks, I want to say that really working for IEBC is actually a service to the nation. I don't think even the rewards that come with that kind of work is commensurate. It's actually a calling, you know, to do this kind of work. Because you've seen even in each and every election, we are even losing staff. The security of staff is not even guaranteed. Yeah. And therefore, this institution is a Kenyan institution. It is run by Kenyans. I think I call upon the Kenyans to support the staff of IEBC, and also help it to strengthen the same. That way, we are going to have a successful commission in future. Right. And also, I want to assure Kenyans that all is not lost. We still have time. If the commissioners are going to come, maybe we'll have challenge in boundaries limitation, but other activities, I'm sure we can be able to be up to task with that. And
with that in mind, you'd still want to serve another term?
I will decide that when we actually reach there, when we cross the bridge.
Out of curiosity, is any of you interested in becoming a commissioner?
Well, Sam, the position of commissioners will be reflected in the advertisement that will come out. Yeah. Is open to all Kenyans, and we are Kenyans.
A very good answer. I have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Moses Sunkuli, who is the director